course, the day that we get some pretty big news, um, they have the tree trimmers out in front of my house. Of course they do. Anyway, I shared this out to a bunch of friends earlier, about 15 minutes after it broke. Thank you, David, for putting your segment together here. For those of you who don't know, tomorrow's my birthday, so I'm getting a lot of fun birthday gifts in the news this week. Tucker Carlson is gone. No goodbye show. David's going to tell you that in a minute. There's, speculation of why. Obviously, he propagated the lies more than anybody else on the network because he gave a platform to all those people. And David's going to talk about where he would potentially go. I think there's some, obvious possibilities because like OA, what are they called? OANN and Newsmax would probably want, he was the biggest personality in cable news because people really like their campfire stories. They want to just be told whatever makes them feel good rather than whether it's truthful or not. Let me cover some of this.
Massive breaking news out of Fox News as Tucker Carlson is out. They have parted ways, and it is unclear about what sparked this, though I'm going to speculate on what happened here, and I'll also speculate on where Tucker may go next. A few options there. First, I'm still digesting how big this news is, because Tucker Carlson, in case you don't know, is one of the primetime hosts at Fox News, is the most popular, most watched cable news host, and holds massive sway over the conservative base. So wherever he goes, it's very likely a lot of his viewership, a lot of those voters are going to follow him. But let's first show you. Let me show you the announcement here from Fox News themselves, saying Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson part ways.
Which, by the way, saying that you're parting ways with an employee is a way of protecting the company from there being anything negative said about your employee or injuring their job prospects. It was a very common phrase when I was in an accounting department. We used to get emails all the time of everybody in the company that parted ways with the company. That could be that they just decided to leave. It could be that they were terminated. And in this case, it was probably a termination because he put the company at an enormous legal risk. They have to pay a $787 million payout. And I bet the shareholders are probably not too happy about that. So if the shareholders are demanding that the station change their strategy on how they deliver news, this can only be good. Now, could the vacuum be filled with somebody even worse? Possibly. But I'm sure at this point, their shareholders are going to hold them accountable for being, for not putting themselves in such legal risk anymore. Because there's another lawsuit coming from the other vote machines, what is Smartmatic or something like that. Their lawsuit's coming in 2024. So they could potentially be awarded something similar. This is devastating for Fox News. Will it put them under? It might. It might. And, when you talk about like things that he could potentially do, where he could go, I think that he's still going to have to go to somebody else because I don't know what his net worth is. And I don't know what his liability is in this as well. And I don't know if they're going to come after him directly, some of these people. Now, they have all the email communications and stuff now. They know that he was lying about how he felt about Trump. And yet, didn't he just do 2 interviews with Trump, or at least 1? I think he did 2, though. He kept getting exclusive interviews and just making the situation even worse. I think that's unsalvageable at this point. But let's hear what David has to say.
Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. We thank him for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor. His last program was on Friday, so no more Tucker shows. He never got to say bye. He's just out. Fox News Tonight will air live at 8 p.m. starting this evening as an interim show with a rotating cast and nothing else here. just a bunch of Fox News mumbo jumbo. So he is out. Now, the network made the announcement. This is an important piece. Less than a week after it agreed to pay $787.5 million in a defamation lawsuit in which Mr. Carlson's show, one of the highest rated on Fox, figured prominently for its role in spreading misinformation after the 2020 election. So I've already covered that lawsuit. But essentially, he was one of the main reasons why Fox had to pay this amount of money. I'm sure that's part of the reason why they're doing this now. But I also don't necessarily think this hurts Tucker Carlson. Of course, it's very early. We have no idea what the actual impact's going to be.
I think it will. I think it will. He'll still have a career, but he's gonna be heading in the direction of Alex Jones at this point. He lost the largest network. That's never a good thing, David. Like, worst case scenario, he goes on one of these smaller, even more extreme channels, which is probably a better fit for him anyway. But I mean, that's best case scenario, actually. Worst case scenario is he ends up on like Rumble with Glenn Greenwald. Entirely possible. But you know what's even better about this, David, is that he was the hookup to get guests on like Jimmy Dore, to have correspondents like that on the show and make it look like they were opening the door to the left when Jimmy Dore is not a leftist, right? So guests like that were getting in through Tucker Carlson. Nomiki Counts too, by the way, getting in through Tucker Carlson. I don't know what the ecosystem is up there in LA and with their connection to Fox News, but it's been creepy as fuck for as long as I've noticed it going on. And so I could not be more pleased that this motherfucker is gone and that he's going to go off to some network that I don't watch and that most people don't watch unless you're like an extreme alt-right conservative. Like, who the hell watches that stuff except for the most extreme MAGA Trumpers? That's where he belongs. He belongs with the knuckleheads. He belongs with the crazy town.
But Tucker now has the ability to go out and say, well, I was too hot for Fox. I told too much truth, even though he didn't. He just lied continuously. But I told too much truth. It was too much.
I don't know, David, because I think these other networks are going to look at what happened and maybe be a little concerned as well that, hey, we could face a lawsuit too if he does that bullshit again. We could also face lawsuits like that if he continues doing that bullshit. So I don't know. He might be a little bit more tempered. I think he's going to go one way or the other. He's either going to get much more extreme or he's going to try and really reel it in because he got burned. And he probably has some personal liability to these companies that were injured.
For Fox to handle. So he can use that as a grifting mechanism in wherever he goes next, whatever he does next. Now, initially, I remember that he launched the Daily Caller, which is its own media website, but he did end up selling his stake in that in 2020. So that's not going to be an option for him. So he doesn't have the Daily Caller anymore. But there's also a big hole at the Daily Wire since the offer with Steven Crowder fell through. I think Tucker may like their offer if it goes to him.
Oh,
so there's always a possibility.
They should call it Fucker with Tucker. Because everybody he invites onto his show is an asshole.
There's the possibility Tucker's big enough where he could just do it himself, right?
I don't know.
He doesn't need anybody else. He can just launch his own thing, do his own YouTube show.
I don't think he would, though, because usually when you do a business venture, you're going to have some level of partners, which is probably why he sold off his shares to the Daily Caller, right? It's not like he was doing that by himself. If there were shares involved in it, then there were other people who owned shares as well. You know, it's not like most people who do business ventures don't go completely solo because it doesn't make you a viable business person. And that's what he prides himself to be as a conservative Republican. I mean, let's be real. He's like a Nazi. But let's go.
Or whatever show, Rumble show, and he'll be perfectly fine.
Rumble.
So I'm sure there's going to be offers flooding in for various right-wing entities to try and grab him, whether it's the Daily Wire, whether it's Rumble. But ultimately he has the ability to kind of do whatever he wants to do himself without needing anybody else. But that also goes to another possibility. Tucker Carlson for president.
Oh my God.
So this has been speculated several times. This is Politico back in, I think.
That would actually be a hilarious primary to watch, because I think that Tucker Carlson on the right side, like with his fan base and stuff, he's probably a bigger challenger to Donald Trump than DeSantis is. This is going to be a hilarious primary if that's what happens. Maybe he's going to try for a VP role, but that I think pretty much everybody wants a female on the ticket at this point. I don't know though. Donald's like such a misogynist. His rape trial starts tomorrow, by the way. So that one is another birthday gift to me. I'm looking forward to that. And then apparently Biden's going to announce tomorrow as well, because it'll be the 4th anniversary of when he announced for the 2020 cycle. And he needs to start meeting with donors towards the end of the week. And he can only do that after he's announced. You can't start raising money like that until you've announced.
2020 again. Saying the GOP is buzzing. The Fox News host ratings have gone gangbusters, and many Republicans think he'd be a force in a Republican primary. Now, I don't know if this next election is the one, because Trump's in there. He's going to have to compete with Trump. And I got to say, if that is a primary, that would be an actual competition. Trump versus Tucker Carlson, I think, would actually...
and he's holding grudges, too. He's not... I don't think he's very happy about the fact that he had to do those interviews with Donald Trump, where Donald Trump then tried to embarrass him about the trip to... was it China? I think it was China. And he said, "You almost got me in trouble," or whatever the fuck it was. I think that Tucker probably has a lot of held up grudges at this point for all the bullshit he had to deal with Trump. And so it could be a very interesting debate season on the Republican side of the House.
Be a real fight. But I think it's more likely that Tucker tries something in the next election cycle in 2028. So who knows on this front? But it wouldn't be surprising to see Tucker come out and be like, "Yeah, I was too much of a truth teller for Fox, but here's what's happening, America. I'm running for you," and his bunch of garbage that he spreads. So that has a contingent of people that are going to be attracted to that. It's the similar voting base that likes Trump, which is why I think it's more likely he would wait this out, knowing Trump is likely going to lose a general in 2024.
I don't know, because I don't know. Like I said, I bet he's holding some grudges, because not only was he telling Trump's lies by way of inviting his guests on, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, additional people that propagated the big lie. He, through his email messages, hated doing it and hated Trump. And he just lost his job. He just lost the biggest cable news network in America. And he might have some legal liability here with this, which is potentially why there's parting ways, because they probably have to get their own attorney teams for what they're doing. They're not done. They still have another suit coming up in 2024. They're not done. So he might be pissed. He might be a little bit pissed today. Although he's probably looking at these articles going, "Oh, you guys want me to run? All right." I would love to see him on the debate stage going after Trump and DeSantis. I'd love to see that happen. I don't want any one of them to win. I don't think any of them can win the general election. But if anybody has a better chance, it would be Tucker Carlson. Because that is Trump's fan base, is Tucker Carlson's show.
But on that point, just to show you that there is more weight behind this than just the idea of him running, he actually was in Iowa just last year. So Tucker Carlson's appearance in Iowa on Friday, back in July, looked like a presidential run, walked like a presidential run, and quacked like a presidential run, but was most certainly not a presidential run, at least as far as anyone knows. The Fox News host was the keynote speaker at the Family Leadership Summit, a gathering of more than 1,800 religious conservatives in Des Moines, Iowa, which every 4 years is the first state to have a say in picking the Republican presidential nominee. So it's the same place that Trump's...
I don't see him you know, here's one of the problems with what just happened for him. This is his problem, not my problem. If he was already out there trying to give the impression of being presidential, but maybe tipping his toe in the water to see, oh, maybe I do this in 2028 or something, right? You have to remember that Mark Zuckerberg did something similar and was touring the country talking about UBI, giving the vibe that he was tipping his toe in the water for a presidential run. But his dreams were crushed when they called him in for the congressional hearings to talk about how manipulated Facebook was by foreign agents. What was that agency that took all our data and was selling it? And there's supposed to be a settlement there too, but it's like you're only going to get like 38 cents on the dollar. But yeah, Zuckerberg got in trouble for that, and that crushed his presidential career. Now, Tucker's base is less rational than Zuckerberg's user base, which is a much broader group of people. But I don't know, because some of these people have been so brainwashed by his own bullshit of pushing this Trump stuff that they might be so loyal to Trump at this point that they're unwilling to see the kid that looks befuddled all the time run for office. But it would be very interesting to watch. So I'll be keeping my eye on this.
Gone to the same place that every single person goes to when they're running for president. Tucker went there. Mm-hmm. So again, this may just be kind of testing the waters, getting sort of the gears running for the idea of doing this kind of thing in the future. It doesn't mean he's necessarily doing it this time, but I would not rule this out. Tucker Carlson is still young in terms of presidential potential candidates, so it wouldn't be shocking to see him do this sometime in the future. But I'm still digesting the idea that Tucker is no longer at Fox. This is, I think, in the short term, beneficial for society as a whole, but in the long term, I don't think it really makes a difference. Tucker's going to find his audience, and this will...
I bet you anything that they waited until today because they had to cut the final paycheck. Because when you fire somebody, you have to deliver that final paycheck. Well, it depends on the state, but in most places, you're supposed to hand it to them on the day of, if you know you're going to terminate somebody. And also, it is customary when somebody is leaving employment that they give 2 weeks notice. It doesn't sound like he gave any notice. This was just, we agreed to part ways, which is a very common expression used when people are leaving a company so that it's not divulged. Because it's illegal for your employer to disparage you and prevent you from future employment. So very interesting. The timing's very interesting because it's not 2 weeks out from this settlement, so it doesn't seem like it was completely universally agreed on by both parties, but that is generally the language that gets used.
Likely potentially lead him to running for even more power if he tries to run for president.
Interesting.